I think that's running. All right, so hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and I'm going to talk to you a bit about plant-based diets and the environment on behalf of the Green Committee, or not on their behalf. Don't take anything I have to say to be to their words. This is what I'm going to be talking about today. So I'm going to introduce myself and this presentation. We're going to talk mostly about the environmental impact, because that's what we're all concerned about. But I can't help but talk a little bit about health and ethics, because, that's what we are. And what can you do? And how can you get in touch? And then we can do questions. Everyone good with that? Excellent. So, who am I? My name is Alan. Alan Wong. I'm president of VegOttawa. I've been vegan for 3 years. I've been the president of VegOttawa for 1 year now, or just about. And what is VegOttawa? Well, we are a nonprofit dedicated to promoting and supporting vegan community and businesses in Ottawa, especially. And we have a membership program, which people can sign up. You can sign up if you want to. It's only $20, and you get a membership, and then you can go to our business partners that we partner with, and then we'll give you a discount. And it's kind of a win-win situation. You can save a good amount of money, probably more than your membership is worth, so it's a miracle. Events, we sometimes do events, things like that. We're working on bringing back VegFest, because that has not happened since the pandemic. Veganuary is a thing we're working on sort of actively right now, because it's January. Veganuary is you maybe have heard of it, but basically it's the idea of trying vegan for January. It started in the UK in 2014, and we are just bringing it to Canada this year for the first time. So that is pretty exciting. And we also are working on a little bit of municipal advocacy. So that's what we do as VegOttawa. Here's the big meat of it. Environmental impact. How does food affect our planet? So, as you can see here, there's foods, but you don't really need to be able to read them. You just need to be able to see this curve here. So everything above this line, actually these are kind of switched, but basically everything above here, these are all animal products, and these are all plant products. And this is the environmental impact of some of your foods. And some industry lobbyists will try to convince you, hey, we're doing regenerative agriculture, or we're finding this way of raising cows that saves methane. Well, even if you take out all of the methane, and that's the gray parts here, this is still what remains. So as you can see, the difference between plants and animals is very different. And why is this? Well, you have to put 20 calories of crops into a cow to get out 1 calorie of food for us to eat. So animals are sort of a middleman that we don't really need. They're very inefficient at doing this because they also have to exist for some time before we turn them into food. Greenhouse gas emissions, again. So Toronto is actually among a number of cities which are in Canada doing good things for this. And they are working with Humane Society International. They have a forward food program, and they work with culinary professionals and institutions to create change in the menus and offerings in cafeterias and stuff in institutions. So Toronto is working with them for their long-term care and their shelter divisions to change their food procurement. They did a study before they did this, and they wanted to know what was the impact of their food purchasing, and this is the result. So this is this red sliver here. This is how much of all of the food they're buying, which is beef. And this is the emissions of everything that they're buying. So beef counts for 3% of all the food they're buying, and it accounts for 48% of their emissions, which is a little insane. And you also count dairy, pork, eggs, and all of the other animal products. The yellow and the red account for, I don't even know how much, I didn't calculate that, but over 80% it looks like of the emissions, whereas they're only accounting for maybe a bit over a third of the actual purchasing. So you can see if you switch your purchasing to more of this stuff, you'll have a lot less of this stuff, which is great. And just a little bit of a comparison here. You you've probably all heard of Beyond. No worries. No worries at all. You've probably heard of Beyond Burgers, Beyond Meat, things like that. And this is just a bit of comparison of the environmental impacts of those two. So beef is the baseline. This is how much less greenhouse gas emissions are used in producing a Beyond Meat burger. And it's about 10% of the emissions. It's about half of the energy use. It's about 10% of the land use. And it's 1% of the water use. So as you can see, eating a Beyond Burger versus a regular burger has a hugely smaller impact, which is great. Deforestation, another big environmental issue that we're concerned about, which also contributes to climate change. 95% of deforestation occurs in the tropics. What is causing that? Beef. Very simple. Also, oil seeds, which are palm and soy. So, here's a question. What do you know about soy? Who's eating all the soy? Animal feed. Actually, it's not cows, but poultry and pigs and other animals. This is what we eat. So some people will say, like, oh, the vegans are eating all the soy and burning down the rainforest. Well, guess what? The vegans are doing about 6% of that, and then this is the rest. So, again, animal agriculture is the leading cause of this and that. Land use, another issue. This is all of the land in the world. This is how much is habitable if you take out deserts and glaciers. And then half of it is agriculture, which is a little bit crazy. And then what do we use that agricultural land for? So this is the same as before. This is our agricultural land. 77% of it is for animal products. It's actually 83% according to this study. So that line would be about here. And we get 17 or 18% of our calories, total calories in the world, from almost all of our land, which is, again, crazy. And we only get 33% of our protein from beef and dairy, which is, again, crazy, because we're using almost all of our land to get very little from it. Extremely inefficient. Beef is even worse. 60% of our land, 2% of our calories, and 5% of our protein. So that is land use. Is anybody surprised by any of this? Raise your hand. I could not believe it when I first found out.
Are chickens included in all this?
Yes, they're also quite inefficient. It takes about 9 calories into a chicken to get 1 calorie out.
Okay.
So similar. Beef is a lot worse in some ways, but chickens are still quite inefficient relative to other things. So again, sort of summary of the land use based on different diets. So this is an average global diet. This is all animal food. This is all animal food, and this is human food that we eat directly. So similarly, if we changed our diet, this is the key point here. If everyone ate a vegan diet, we'd reduce the amount of land we use for agriculture by 75%. So this is all land we're using right now. This is what we could be doing. And that is the area the size of North America and Brazil, which is both the size of Canada. So North America, entire land area of North America, we could reduce that amount of land that we're using right now for animal agriculture, plus another Canada. Canada's pretty big, to be fair. Now, what about the almond milk? Almonds use so much water. Does anybody know about, have you heard this?
No.
Vegans with their almond milk. Yes, almond milk is quite bad. It does use a lot of water. But wait, what's that over there? Oh no! Land use, greenhouse gas emissions, eutrophication, fresh water use, dairy, all of them. In case you don't know, eutrophication is where nutrients from farming get into groundwater, into rivers, into oceans, cause algal blooms and ocean dead zones. We'll talk about that in a second. This is where that comes from. So, who knows what this is? Anyone? What's in here? a whole bunch of animals. This looks like probably chickens or pigs. And what comes out of them? Lots of it. That's what that is. And what happens to that? Into this, into groundwater, into our rivers. This is what causes that issue. They also spray it on crops. Because why not? Right? They do that. Also, they do that near poor people. These are in marginalized communities.
Yeah.
And they have health issues from lots of poo in the air all the time. It's great.
Well, especially now, I don't know if anybody knows, but there's so much recall.
Yes.
Foods these days.
Yes. That's where it comes from.
What's going on, you know?
Yeah. E. coli.
Yeah. Mysterious.
So the Mississippi River is somewhere in here. And this is a ocean dead zone that they recorded, I think, in 2015-ish. Don't quote me on that. This was recorded by NOAA. That is the size of New Jersey, and there's just no oxygen, no ocean life in that entire area, which is crazy. Because, I don't know if you know, but in our coastal areas of our oceans, which is about 10% of our oceans, we have about 90% of our species. I saw this a couple days ago on like Our Planet. David Attenborough told me, so it must be true. Species extinction, another big environmental issue right now. Does this graph look familiar? Because it's basically the same thing. We're using, of our habitable land, half of it is covered in crops, mostly for animals. So what is the leading cause of species extinction? Is our diets. And here's a sort of summary of some of the things we talked about. Land use, greenhouse gas emissions, freshwater consumption, animals, plants. You can see, I think, quite easily the difference. And then this is a whole bunch of studies. I can send out the slides if you want. I'll send them to you and you can distribute. If you want to know any of the research behind any of this, this is just a few of the studies that I'm citing this information from. The Eat Lancet study. Has anyone ever heard of this? So, a group of the world's leading scientists came up with this plate as an example of what kind of diet we could have that would be actually sustainable. Because our current diet, we need like 2 or 3 Earths if everyone was eating like North Americans are. And even as we are right now, without everyone eating as North Americans are, we're already as it is, as I'm aware. I'm sure you're aware. So this is what you could be eating to be sustainable. This is your animal source protein. Is that what anybody's lunch typically looks like? Most people know. Half vegetables, lots of grains, lots of plant proteins. And let's talk a little bit about diet. So, what are the leading causes of death in Canada? Cancer and heart disease, top 2. And there are dozens of randomized controlled trials, systematic reviews, lots of strong peer-reviewed evidence showing a significant decrease in risk of death, all-cause mortality, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, other diseases as well. If you go on a plant-based diet, especially a whole food plant-based diet, obviously. Other health issues. What is the leading cause of antimicrobial resistance? Does anybody know? I'm sure you all know because it's right here. It is animal agriculture. All those cows, pigs, chickens are being fed many antibiotics because they don't want them to get diseases, they want them to grow faster, all of these things. So we are using up one of our most precious resources. One of our best inventions in medicine is antibiotics. And we're using so much of it for animal agriculture. Relatedly, zoonotic diseases. Everyone's heard of H5N1 bird flu. It's going around. I think we've had some human deaths now from it. It's in, where is it? Dairy herds and chickens. So animal agriculture. Also, another interesting point is that many of our past zoonotic diseases, like SARS and Ebola and stuff, many of these come from our proximity to animals, which are confined and in a concentrated area with many other animals passing diseases around, as we know. So again, one of our big risks and one of our big existential risks that we're facing as a planet is pandemics, and one of the main causes is animal agriculture. Once again, Canada's food guide. This plate might look familiar, very similar to the Lancet plate. It's half vegetables, lots of grains, mostly plant protein. This is what Canada's food guide is now. You may have all seen the pyramid or the other things from before. Those were mostly based on industry lobbying. So the dairy industry, the beef industry, they're extremely large, very powerful companies, and they want you to eat their products. And so they've lobbied the government. I have it on not good authority. Somebody told me that they were working on this process. When it was happening, they were developing this, and they initially came up with an entirely plant-based recommendation. But that was before any lobbying happened. So a little bit still obviously happened, and this is the result. That, again, is just somebody telling me, so don't quote me on that. But dairy is no longer a food group. Make water your drink of choice. And among protein foods, consume plant-based more often. Has anybody seen this plate before today? Or the Canada Food Guide before today? Yeah, it's very, very different from what it was. As you can see, we've got beans, we've got chickpeas, nuts, seeds, tofu, and then we have, I think that's fish, eggs, chicken, and a little bit of beef, but it's more of a mix than it used to be, which is great. Ethics. Can't help myself, I have to talk about it. What does vegan mean? Who knows? You know.
Yeah, it basically means that you try and cause the least harm to non-human animals as you can.
Yes.
Is my understanding.
Raise your hand if you disagree with any one of these statements. It's wrong to drop a kitten in a blender. I agree. I hope you do too. It's wrong to suffocate dogs in gas chambers. I hope you also agree. We should avoid animal cruelty as much as possible. I hope you all agree. Great, you're all vegans, because that's basically what vegan means, as we've just heard. In spirit, at least. Most people are. Most people are against most or many factory farming practices, such as those things I just described and many others. But we still pay for them, because we're conditioned to do that, we're raised that way. It's tradition, culture, a lot of things that are very difficult to overcome, and a lot of marketing from very large industries. But most animal products are made by factory farming, which we all disagree with, because they have to be. As we've said, they're extremely inefficient, and to do it any other way than factory farming is even more efficient. We would need 8 planets to feed us if everything was, grass-fed and all of that. We kill 90 billion land animals each year, and between 1 and 3 trillion fish, which is, I say that, but it's hard to have meaning because these numbers are very big and humans are not good at understanding scale of numbers and size. All of the humans that have ever lived is about 100 billion, and we would kill that many individuals in about, I think it's a couple of weeks at the rate we kill animals, which is crazy. Animal cruelty is illegal, except for when it comes to farmed animals. Because standard industry practices are exempt from the law. So as long as all of the farms are doing it, it's fine. You can't say anything about it. And there's also basically no oversight. It's not regulated, it's not monitored or enforced. They set their own standards. So nobody really knows. We went back to those barns that we saw earlier next to the big poop lagoons. So what's going on in there? Nobody knows. We never see it. All we see is the packaging, which has like one happy chicken on it. The human side. So ethics is not just about animals when it comes to eating more plants. So farms, as I mentioned, are often built in marginalized communities. It impacts their health and their property value, because nobody wants to live next to a big poop lagoon, which is getting sprayed all over their house. Slaughterhouses are largely employing vulnerable people who suffer injuries and mental health issues. I just saw some research yesterday, which I think 60% of slaughterhouse workers have extreme or moderate pain as a result of their work, which is nuts. And also climate change, as we've already covered, also affecting many millions or billions of humans already and continuing to do so. So what can you do? As an organization, you can advocate for plant-based food policy for your organization. So you can decide, when we have a catered event, we're going to do most of it vegan. doesn't even have to be all, but it still makes a difference. You can take as I mentioned before, Humane Society International Canada, they have a forward food program which helps organizations such as yours, potentially, to go more plant-based. If you take their pledge, it would be something like, we pledge to, when we do catering for events or anything like that, to have at least 50% plant-based. And that can be pledge, signed, and you get credit. Great. You can also do, it's a little late for this, but you can still start. It's still January. You can do the Veganuary Workplace Challenge. As I mentioned, Veganuary is just trying vegan for 30-ish days. And as an individual, what can you do? You can learn more. You can watch some documentaries. That's how I became vegan. I was not 3 years ago. I ate a lot of beef, I ate a lot of cheese, I ate a lot of ice cream, and completely changed my mind. I used to think I could never go vegan. I could never do it. That's crazy. Why were these people so extreme? And then I learned more about our food systems, and well, here I am. You can also contact your elected representative if you're extremely moved. You can join VegOttawa, as I mentioned. It's only $20 for the year, and you can probably save more than that if you visit a few of our business partners, of which we have about 35 to 40, some of which are near here. It used to be Copper Ranch, actually, in the basement. And you can go vegan if you want. That'd be great. I'm not saying you have to, but or you can also be as vegan as possible. Maybe you're thinking, I could go vegan, except I really love cheese. A lot of people say that. Many people say that. But you can still go vegan, except for the cheese, right? Just because you love cheese doesn't mean you have to keep eating beef, chicken, eggs, anything else. So eliminate as many things as you can, as you feel like. You have permission. You're not going to get kicked out of the vegan club for not being fully vegan. And that's it. Thank you. This is me. This is my information. And it is time for questions. And I know sometimes people don't have questions, so I prepared some in case you want to ask those ones. But I am open to anything you want to talk about. Thank you.
So in a plant-based, I read with that second question, the protein. I know it
Yes.
comes from legumes and
Yes,
things
yes,
like
exactly.
that. That's basically all the plant-based protein.
Interestingly, you may have heard this thing about complete proteins, and some foods don't have all the proteins. That's actually a myth. So all proteins, or all foods, have basically all proteins.
Okay.
If you're eating whole foods, basically everything you have has protein. In slightly different amounts per calorie, but if you are getting enough calories, you almost certainly are getting enough protein. Even if you just ate broccoli, if you ate enough calories out of broccoli, which would be very hard, you would still get enough protein. But yes, it is possible, and I don't know if I've ever heard of anybody going to the hospital for protein deficiency.
Okay.
But yes. Any other questions? Yes.
Kind of on, I guess, the last question. I eat a lot of the Beyond products, and I was wondering, would you say that that's a healthy alternative, or what's your stance on that?
Yes. So health and diet is a little complex to talk about because it's not a question of is a thing healthy, because everything is by default healthy because it has some nutrients in it, right? So that's why we eat it as calories, and calories we need. So you have to think about two things. One is this healthy compared to this, or instead of what? Because you have to substitute. If you start eating something like Beyond products, you're substituting out something else. And the other question is, what is the long-term health outcome? So a lot of people are fear-mongering right now about ultra-processed foods. Who's heard that term before? Mm-hmm. What does it mean? Basically nothing, in terms of health especially. It's sort of a category, but it doesn't mean that everything in it is or is not healthy. So how do you know? Well, you can look at the long-term health outcomes. If you substitute in this food for this food, do people on average experience better health outcomes? And in terms of Beyond Meat versus meat products, the answer is yes, people have better health outcomes on Beyond Meat products versus other ones, such as ground beef or chicken or other animal products. Why? Because they have saturated fat and cholesterol mostly, and other disease-inspiring compounds. So yes, ultra-processed foods doesn't really mean what a lot of people want you to think it means. Beyond Meat products are healthier than meat. But yes, it's definitely healthier, even more, to have beans and other things like that, which are whole, a little bit like sodium if you're worried about blood pressure, especially, things like that. Yeah. Yes.
I always find it a challenge. I mean, right now I'm pretty lucky because my wife's a really good cook and she's a vegetarian, not a vegan. So we do reduce our meat consumption at home because of that.
Yeah.
But if she's not there, the easiest for me is to cook meat.
Right.
I find cooking vegetarian or vegan, sometimes there are stuff that are very easy. There's stuff that takes more time.
Yeah.
So I'm always challenged by that. And when is it better? Yes, of course, I guess vegan is better, but if we reduce the amount that we eat to start off, because I think that overall, I think we just eat too much.
Right. Yeah.
whether it's what, but we eat too much, especially in North America.
Right.
And then it's like if we eat less meat, then is I guess, is there studies on that to see like, okay, it's, you know, there's two extreme, eating meat and being vegan, but
Right.
those of us that have reduced.
Yeah, so it depends on what sort of outcome you're looking for. If you're looking at environment, then obviously, you know, it's a gradient of the more the better, and then most is the best. In terms of health, it's pretty similar, but there will be more diminishing returns in that respect. So the more you eat plants, the better. And once you get to the last like 10%, it's probably not going to make a big difference. In terms of ethics, though, every animal that you eat is then another animal that then has to go through things. So, yes. Yeah, it's definitely better to reduce. Talking about like vegan versus omnivore diets and food, you can have a healthy of either one, you can have an unhealthy of either one, you can have an expensive of either one, you can have an easy or difficult of either one. You could maybe find different recipes that are easier to prepare. When I first became vegan, I was a terrible cook. I didn't make anything healthy at all. Like a burrito bowl or something like that, you know, just chop up some lettuce and tomato, peppers, and throw in some beans, something like that. Very easy to make. Just getting up some tofu in a sandwich. Tofu egg salad is very easy. Things like that. So there are easy things to make. It's just a matter of finding them. And yes. Louise, you wanted to?
Yeah, I just have a comment and then also like a question.
Sure.
So I do kind of wonder, so I grew up vegetarian, and so the things I learned to cook at a young age were kind of plant-based. So if you, like, so I wonder if you're kind of used to kind of cooking meat, and it's kind of like a default, if that makes sense. Like, it's kind of just what you're used to. Whereas, like, I wouldn't know how to cook chicken necessarily. Like, that I would be concerned about doing that actually, because I guess I'm a salmonella. So yeah, I just, because like I feel like when we are, you know, children, like we're kind of fixed into a certain diet, and as we learn to cook, we kind of learn based on that diet. So yeah, and I agree with Alan. Like plant-based food is if you have like a burrito bowl, or if you have like, you know, like a chickpea salad, or even like cooking like curries and stuff, it's fairly, yeah, like it gets easier over time, just in the same way as learning to cook gets easier. And just, I guess, like a question to Alan. So like, what would you say to somebody who wants to become vegan, but is a bit concerned about how that might kind of interact with family life and kids and things like that, or especially if they're like busy parents, or like how would you, I guess, respond to that?
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult, like not everything about being vegan is easy. Some things are, like picking up the soy milk instead of the dairy milk, very easy thing to do. But yes, dealing with family and friends can be difficult. There are a lot of great resources out there talking about something like that, ways to communicate with your friends and family about what it is you're doing, why are you doing it. And yeah, if you're busy parents and stuff like that, again, we are very soon actually with VegOttawa, we're working on starting a buddy program. So if you want to try out being vegan, you can get a vegan sort of mentor, and we're hoping